Good afternoon. Ms. Spano? Here. Ms. Gutierrez? Here. Mr. Meyer? Ms. Weinberg? Treasurer Martinez? Here. Secretary Wolf?
Here.
Vice Chair Board?
Here.
Chair Jimenez?
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Order. First thing is the Pledge of Allegiance. Could we all stand? Member Gutierrez, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
This for all. Okay, I guess we already did the roll call, so I need an approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? It's been moved. Second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. It's been approved. Declaration of voting conflicts.
Do any members of this board have any conflicts with any items on the agenda? Seeing none, we move forward.
Okay. It's time for citizen comments. Any citizens that have any comments? I think we have 2 minutes. We give 2 minutes. You can come forward and give your comments. Any citizens wishing to give comments before this board? Seeing none, citizen comment period is closed. My comments. In front of you, you have a resolution that does two things. It reaffirms the no toll increases that we had in 2014.
Board members, it's in your Manila folder. It's Resolution 1901.
And also, it basically takes away the requirement that this board has to look at a CPI increase every 3 years. And so when the time comes, I don't know when the time is appropriate for it, we'll take that up and have discussions on those two items. The second thing I want to talk about is a rebate program. I asked the executive director to look at reinstituting a rebate program for those that really need relief. And so hopefully we have something in the works for that too, and we can discuss it when the time comes. Want to let you all know that on February 6th I am going to Tallahassee to speak to certain legislators and the leaders of the House and the Senate to talk about a bill that's of concern to MDX. And finally, also that myself and Chairwoman Edmondson today had the opportunity to speak to Representative Avila separately. I don't know what she said. She doesn't know what I said. And so, but I can say that I believe that there is room for compromise. I believe that there's room for us to work together with the state. And so I've told him and assured him that I would try to tone down rhetoric, that we were formed by the state, and that we should work together for the betterment of the people of Miami-Dade County. So I will do that. And on February 6th, again, I'm traveling up to Tallahassee to meet with a delegation to see what we can do about this. In particular, I'm meeting with Representative Avila. I'm meeting with Senator Diaz. Manny Diaz. I'm meeting with hopefully the Senate President and also the Speaker of the House to talk about this and other issues of concern not only to MDX but also to Miami-Dade County. I believe that the Executive Director is also going to go on that trip. And he will be able to give me information as we go throughout the day. Other folks from Miami-Dade County are going to go on that trip, I believe, and will be joining us sometimes and sometimes not. It all depends on the issue. I think you've heard my comments on the radio about that I'm not in favor of this bill. MDX does a very good job, that I know that we do a very good job, and I think that it's in the best interest of Miami-Dade to keep MDX in the hands of people from Miami-Dade. If we can accomplish that, then great. And if we can accomplish that in a cordial, cooperative way, I'd rather do it that way, let's put it that way, okay? So, Chairwoman Edmondson, do you have any comments?
Same as you did, there's a lot of room for negotiation there, and he's open.
Very good, okay. So I didn't know that because I hadn't spoken to her about it until now. Now this is an open meeting, now we can talk about it. So I'm glad that you got the same feedback that I got, okay? So if anybody have any comments on the comments that I've made so far? All right, why don't we move on? Approval of the summary minutes. Move for a motion, second. All in favor? Any discussion? Okay, aye. Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. And the resolution that the chairman spoke about is in your packets. It's in the manila folder. It is, the majority of the resolution was already adopted by the previous board in 2014. The new part of it is the repealing of the Consumer Price Index. And, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, it's appropriate at any time. You can ask for a vote of the board to endorse the resolution, so it's your prerogative.
Okay.
I'm not going to speak to House Bill 385. That's been covered. I will give the board an update on the Kendall Parkway. Since the last board meeting in December, we have already begun our right-of-way acquisition program. Willing sellers who went to the public hearing on December 13 have already contacted us, and we have already started the process of acquiring right-of-way. Yes, there is a risk to that because there is a challenge to the Comprehensive Development Master Plan, but it's a risk worth taking for the benefit of the community out in West Kendall. If we wait for all of that to be resolved, then all we're doing is delaying the project and increasing the price of the project. So we have started that right-of-way program on willing sellers. We have started coordinating with Miami-Dade County on all of the local arterial roadways that would connect up to the Kendall Parkway throughout from the north on 137th Avenue all the way south to 136th Street. We're already working with Public Works on that. We've already developed a permitting program and reached out to the South Florida Water Management and the Army Corps of Engineers. As I mentioned in December, we've already put together I call it a term sheet, but for us in government, it's more of a memorandum of agreement or a memorandum of understanding where we would like to sit down with all the agencies and hopefully the elected leaders and agree to the framework of how this mitigation and acquisition that we heard in these presentations prior to this could work, because it's going to require a lot of swaps and there's misinformation out there. So that's already been prepared, and we would like to take it to the next step and start having those conversations. We continue to support Miami-Dade County Attorney's Office, Dennis Kerbel, with the preparations for the CDMP Challenge, which is scheduled before an administrative law judge on April 15th. I mentioned in the Operations Committee earlier today that staff is going to have to begin revisions to our work program. Because of the reduction in revenues that occurred, and we've been waiting to see if we can issue debt to replace the cash projects, there comes a time, there's a time crunch. If we don't make changes to the work program, we're not in compliance with our work plan. So in our update, we're going to be shifting projects. Like I told the committee before, I said, you know, our number one priority is safety, preservation, and then capacity. And in capacity, absolutely number one priority is going to be the Kendall Parkway and any project that supports the Kendall Parkway and our express bus network that goes east-west, which is on 836, 874, and 878. So we're going to put that as a priority and work our way down. We've done this many times. The Secretary knows how this is done every year. We will bring it before this board, and then that approval at the TPO will become a master amendment of the TIP rather than taking every single project individually and going back and forth. I'd rather do it that way, and then if we can issue debt in the near future after the fiscal year is done and bring projects back, then I would do amendments to bring the projects back individually rather than the back and forth. So I mentioned it to the committee because I'll be bringing that to the committee. Sure.
I know you're not going to give a report on the bill, and I'm not going to ask you to analyze the bill, but I do have a question about the Kendall Parkway job. The bill, as it is currently written, does say that currently issued bonds are going to be honored and they'll be paid off. Is this project far enough along to fall under that language? We have not yet issued the bonds. When would we issue the bonds?
We can't issue the bonds until after the CDMP challenge is completed, and we actually need the cash flow for that project. So have not issued any
Very
debt
good,
for that.
or not very good. That
Right.
understood.
Understood. And then the final thing that I want to...
Excuse me a second.
Sure.
Mr. Secretary, that's why in today's State of the County address, I made it very clear that the Kendall Parkway is very important to me personally as the mayor, and also, you know, and I'll make that very clear now that project is very important to me personally as the chair of this board. One of the major issues that I have with that bill is the fact that it may stall that project for some time. And the people of West Dade need that relief now. So that's a big concern of mine. We haven't issued the debt. So if something happens to this board, then the tolls that are there are there, and we haven't issued debt for that particular. And I don't know how that all will work out with FDOT, you know, taking over MDX. That's a big question mark, okay, which I have.
And then the final piece of information is we prepared a targeted communications and outreach plan at the request of the board in the December board meeting. It's in your yellow folders. I would ask each of the committee board members to look at it. We will reach out to you individually, or alternatively, as was mentioned, I think, by Board Member Edmondson, Chairwoman Edmondson, maybe a smaller group designated by this board can look at this plan and put it into action. We laid out all the strategies. It is targeted, and it is targeted to projects and getting our message out. So that is in your packet for review, and we will be calling and trying to meet with each one of the board members to get your feedback. That concludes my report, sir.
Any questions on the executive director's report? Yes. Board Member Martinez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rodriguez, I want to talk about the Targeting MDX Communication Outreach Plan.
Sure.
I noticed that you have some issues here. One of the things, Mr. Director, and it's been discussed by the chairman and by many other boards, is we're not getting our message out there. We're doing a very poor job of it, and we have had misinformation that is never ending. For example, several weeks ago, there was a headline in the Miami Herald that essentially said, if this new law passed, the tolls could go away. And I'm paraphrasing, and I actually have demonstrative, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to see it, of what it looked like.
Sure.
This is what it said. These tolls you pay on Miami highways could come to an end if this bill passes.
Yeah, in 24 years.
You didn't let me finish. My point is exactly that.
The headline is true. They didn't put the 24 years. The last one in 24 years.
The problem is that 60 to 80% of individuals that read quite often only read the headline, and they're
That's
incorrect.
correct. That's correct.
Okay? So I have literally had individuals contact me saying, listen, we need to have this law passed because it will get rid of tolls. And like you said, in 24 years, and I would go as far as to say, maybe. Because between now and 24 years from now, a legislative law could pass, hypothetically, that would not do away with the tolls.
You don't believe that, do you? Really?
Well, considering the history of the United States, there's never been a toll road that's become free. I think the factual support is there that it probably won't happen.
Okay. All right.
So I believe we need more than just a community outreach. We need to start doing some type of public relations to combat the misinformation. Now, this board in the past has always been against that because we would get criticized for spending dollars to do. The problem is we're getting pummeled out there, and if we're going to get criticized either way, at least we should get the facts and the information out. So part of what I'd like is to have the board come up, at least present, and if the board is against it, it's fine, some type of a reasonable budget so that we can do some type of stuff moving forward.
This proposal that's before you utilizes the budget that we already have in
Right.
our process, but if you look at it closely, it changes a little bit of the way that we do things. where we're actually going to engage a lot more in social media. I think it's important that we answer immediately and sometimes engage, because it spreads out there. It becomes fact on social media. It's amazing,
But we need
you
to-
know, how things get out there. And I think it's important that we engage. These are things that in the past we have not engaged in. So I invite the board to look at this, and we can cover it with the budget that we have in the current fiscal year.
If I may, that may be one process, but I believe we need to allocate even more dollars for it. I believe that this legislation is an accumulation of years of getting beaten up, and that the fact that there is so much confusion. There are people who are saying, yes, I'm paying $12 on I-95, and it's MDX's fault. And part of that reason is that we're not getting it out. So I believe we need to do even more, and I'm making that very clear, and I think that's something we should consider, because the last time we met, we were not in favor of that. I understand that. But this legislation didn't exist. And my concern is not just this year. My concern is that we're back here again next year and the year after doing this again and again. So we need to change the tone and the philosophy of MDX. They don't have to like us, but it has to be a point where we're not blamed for literally everything that goes on involving transportation. So that's something I want to put out there, and I'd like for staff, if the chair, you have no objection, to give us some suggestions on what we can do on that issue. Thank you.
Any discussion on what Board Member Martinez has said? Yes.
For members that have been here, you'll remember my mantra has always been education, education, education. Even some of the presenters today brought that, and it warmed my heart. Education is so important, because unless we get the information out there that's real and factual, the people make up the stories. I believe that this is very important, and I think it falls under my committee of the Operations and Communications, so I would like to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And hopefully, we'll get as many people to attend the meeting as possible, so we can have a healthy discussion, how we can get out there and educate. And also, with the help of our new lobbyists, they will spread the educated word. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Board Member Gutierrez.
Thank you. I think the opportunity is now, what you've already started to do on the radio. The opportunity to expand the messaging and how you've actually addressed what the issue at hand is. The facts need to be continued to be played again and again across all levels, not just the Spanish radio, but on English radio, like you've already started. Also on television with everybody. Right now, you have the moment in time that you are the champion of the people, and take the moment and express why it is that we're fighting this. We're not fighting this because we're fighting that the tolls are going to go away. The tolls are not going to go away. The tolls are going to continue. And instead, you're going to get a CPI that you're never going to know that it exists, because now it's under the FDOT rule, under the state rule. Aside from that, but the money will no longer stay here. So the information you've already started, Mayor, is the positive message that continues and is needed to be relayed, because there is one person that everybody can agree to. We need to protect the people of Miami-Dade County, and who's the best voice is the best voice that's sitting on both sides of the aisles for Dade County and at MDX, and that would be you. But to continue on the English Avenue, I think that that's what it needs. Other messaging may be important, but right now, the message at hand, that people don't understand and they need clarity. That's the key, the focus, the clarity of what it is. Also, you know, it's really funny, politicians, with all respect of some elected officials that are sitting here and public servants that are sitting here. I'm addressing to politicians. I'm throwing it out there for other politicians. Those politicians listen to radio, listen to TV, listen to everything else that's happening. And they too get afraid when they now see that the community is being informed and knows and understands what it is that they're pitching, and they're not pitching the right tune. What they started to do, and it's not the right tune. That's why elections are won. Sometimes that purse is very powerful, but the messaging and the communication is also very strong. And we are on the winning side in terms of we're fighting for the right cause. So I think the moment in time is now to go in and continue what you've done. Thank you.
I would say that, my comments are this. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not in favor of the legislation as currently crafted. And so I came out strong in a lot of different ways about why I thought it was wrong. But now, for me, I'm gonna wait until see what happens on the 6th of February, and then take the action after that. I'd rather, I'm a guy that, I use honey instead of, a stick. But I never negotiate from a position of weakness. And some people have made the mistake of thinking that somehow I come in from a position of weakness. I don't, all right? So I also feel that, it's a fight between our own legislation and our own delegation and people from Miami-Dade County is not in the best interest of the people of Miami-Dade County.
No.
So if we can reach an accord, when we can reach an agreement that gives the legislature some of what they want, I mean, it's a win for them, and then also a win for us, and I think that's the best course. So right now, first of all, I won't even be in town, so I come back on the 5th, I leave on the 6th, so I'm going to wait till next week and talk to leadership, talk to the sponsors of the bill. Can we reach a resolution to this and then move forward? And then we'll take the appropriate action after that, whatever comes out of that. So that's what I have relayed to Representative Avila. And so I keep my word. That's why my rhetoric will be toned down until we see what happens on the 6th and then on future days. And so that's going to be my course of action for right now. And Madam Chairwoman, do you think that that's the right thing to do?
You get more bees with more honey.
Agree.
And Mr. Chair, it's obvious that you don't become a public servant to hurt the people from the community you serve. So I think it's always better for everyone to work together, and that's always been the mantra with the members of this board and obviously as well. But there are consequences, and obviously you've pointed them out in detail, that may not have been thought through insofar as the legislation on what it could affect the Parkway, because it has been described, the fact, what it could affect home rule, and the fact that it's just common
There are
sense.
other consequences to this action that I haven't even articulated yet.
Right.
And I'm not going to yet.
Correct.
Okay? So there are I have something else in my bag that I haven't put out yet.
Yeah, for example.
So
right.
I'm not going to say what
And
those
I'm not
are.
either,
I'm
and I agree with
not
you.
going to say what that is, okay? But there are consequences, I believe, also, not just to us, but to the state. Okay?
Yes.
So I'm going to leave it at that, and then we can, again, I want to have those conversations with the leadership and the sponsors, and hopefully we can resolve this issue so that, for both of us, okay? All right?
I agree.
So that's, my tone today is a little bit different than it has been in the radio. I've been a little bit feisty and, very, very forceful. That's not normally my nature, right? I mean, I'm usually a really nice guy and all that. So, I'm easygoing, yeah.
We're very passionate about the Parkway today.
So
during the State
I'm
of the
very
Parkway.
passionate, because I'm very passionate about that project.
I know that.
Okay, so,
We know that.
okay, so, let's leave it at that for now. The February 6th is coming around the corner. It's only about a week away, so. Yeah. Bernard, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, before we leave the topic of the media plan, commencing Monday, we've been able to secure the billboard coming out of downtown, the digital billboard over by our main gantry at 17th Avenue for the next 6 months. We'll be running messages updating the community, our customers, on the projects that we're building, how we're going. For example, this is the first message that's going to go up: better commute coming summer of 2019. We'll use it to promote the new express bus commuter shuttle and create a buzz and anticipation for that project as those lanes begin to go in, which we'll be seeing them going in. The red-colored lanes were exclusive for bus. And also, we can create customers, because there's a lot of people that work downtown, a lot of law firms and engineering firms that have people who pay a lot of money monthly for parking that could use that shuttle. They'd rather pay their customers using that shuttle than pay what they pay for parking, and we can create a big customer base for commuters to use our service. So we're going to be able to, we can change the messages. We could have a message in the morning and a different message in the afternoon. We can change them at the drop of a hat. So any messages that the board instructs me to put up on the board, our creative team will be able to put, and they can change the graphics designs or whatever are the needs of our agency.
Fair enough. Okay. So right now, it's just informing the public
projects
about
for the next
the
6
new
months, our
the
projects
express bus
advancing.
services that we're going to start in the very near future. Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? With the report? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. General Counsel's report?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I know you appreciate briefness. Just an update on the ETC matter. As I reported to the board, we filed our brief in December. They asked for a couple 60 days extensions, which we agreed to. So their reply brief will be due in May, early May, and that's it.
Okay. One thing I forgot to mention was, and I don't know if it's happening to other folks, but I got a bill the other day for toll by plate on one of my cars, and I have a SunPass. So,
Negative balance. It's the negative balance.
there's no negative balance. My SunPass account automatically, replenishes. No, mine was $1.50, and so, yeah, $1.50, and I'm like, it's a car that I've had SunPass on for like 15 years or so. So, is that happening to people around here? Happening? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody know what's going on? Find out what's going on?
We have,
Huh?
Past people. See, they have the back-end office. They're the ones that want control of the world, at least the state of Florida. Should explain why they have a problem. Hiring inferior companies.
Well, I mean, but it concerns me though, because there's obviously then, if I have that many people just on this board that this happened to, I wonder how many of our customers, were they not billed, or are they being double billed?
Mayor, we get
Because I don't know if, in fact, my SunPass, actually paid for whatever, I went through. It should have, because my SunPass account replenishes automatically, and replenishes from my American Express card, which has got an unlimited balance. I don't have a credit limit, all right? So it doesn't matter. It'll just keep on going, okay? I don't even know how much I pay in tolls, to be honest with you, all right? Because it's like blind to me, because my American Express card pays for it. But actually, then I pay for it. I mean, American Express doesn't pay for my bills. So I got this bill, and my wife's saying, "Hey, I thought we had SunPass." I said, "Yeah, we do." And what's this $1.58 all about? I said, "I haven't the faintest idea what that $1.58 is all about." And then are they actually double billing me for something that my SunPass already paid? And how do I find that out? How in the world would I know that the SunPass actually kicked off? Because I have one of those little cards. It doesn't beep, doesn't do anything. And by the way, yeah, okay, when was that, okay? So maybe this is something pretty deep, and actually exacerbating our situation where our customers are saying, "Hey, look, MDX, not only do I have SunPass now, they're also charging me toll by plate." Because, we are the boogeyman, so, so we need to get into this and see what's going on. How do we do that?
You've already done it. We will convey the message to the state of Florida, to the SunPass Turnpike. We will explain some of the issues that have been going on. We get the calls every day, board members. It happens to me. It happens to my wife. There's issues when we transfer to the new system. They're still working out bugs. I think they need to know what the extent of the issues are, and I think that's something that we continue to convey to the Turnpike staff that is overseeing the conduit contract.
Board Member Board?
How would you know the extent of the error, of the mistake, of the reach, of, how would you know that?
That is the issue, Vice Chair. That is the issue, and that's where the public,
But think about
we
that for a
spent 20
second. I mean,
there was, exactly,
there's-
exactly. That is the
Three or
concern.
four of us that had it, and we're all credit card payers.
That is the concern.
With, my replenishment happens at $15. I get another 25, so, because I want to be able to pay for the airport.
Correct.
So I can't be under $15, right? So how could I owe $1.50? What happened?
That's,
And maybe what Board Member Gutierrez was saying is an interesting angle, which is to say that centralization and statewide operations sometimes are not the panacea that they appear to be, sometimes.
Listen, I think we need to get to the bottom of this, because this could be a lot of money, all right? I mean, mine was $1.58. I don't know if I'm going to get another one, all right? So, what was yours? How much was yours?
A dollar or something. 25 cents. Yeah.
Well, but it doesn't even make sense to bill somebody for 25 cents. It takes you more to process a 25-cent bill than it gets to get the 25 cents.
That's a lot.
The postage is what? It's 18 cents at least?
No, it's more than that. Could I make a suggestion?
All right, yeah.
Could we get, I mean, one of the ways of understanding how broad this scope is, or how big the mistake is to look a little bit of history, right? So if we can look at the last 12 months and look at the amount of mail, charges that we had, or issued charges, or invoices that we issued, and kind of look at that data set, and then look at the last 3 months, or when we started billing that. I mean, there are some months where we had no billings, right? So those numbers will be very small.
Correct, and I think in the month of January, and Steve can speak to this, they began billing. They
Right.
sent out all the invoices to customers on the SunPass side to please bring your account up to date. And they're about 70% through the backlog for toll by plate at this point in time. And obviously, that 70%, they may be double billing people, we don't know, but, we'd be interesting to see some of your bills so we can see
Sure.
what some of the
Absolutely.
glitches are in the system, because you're right, the magnitude of the issue may be much greater than what we perceive.
definitely.
So I think that we can correlate it with dollars, number of invoices. I mean, those start to give you some indication of whether this is a really, really big thing, or whether it's just very, very sporadic.
Well, right now, I think they're still in the process of working through some of the reporting. I think we're a little bit in the dark.
Okay.
Excuse me, but I thought the process with SunPass was that it takes the picture, so that if somehow the card or the reader didn't buzz or something, it didn't hit the tower, that the reader looks at the license plate and says, yeah, that license plate is attached to a SunPass. That's the way it's supposed to work, right? Detected no balance, and yet you start at 15, and mine's at 20. At $20, when it goes to 20, more money.
Mr. Mayor, it could be several issues. Based on the way that it works, if it fails to read your box, your transponder, it takes the picture. We then send that information to SunPass and say, here's license plate ABC123. Does it belong to an account that has funds? If yes, it's paid. If not, it then sends an invoice out. So here we got to find out why, for one, your license plate was not associated with your account, or if it was, why they didn't pay. And once I get that information from you, I can find that out, of what the problem was.
Well, that would be interesting, because I would say, okay, that may be an issue, all right, it's not to solve my problem, but, okay, so I shouldn't have been double billed then? Okay. Because that only happens if it didn't hit the tower and...
The only way that would happen is if your license plate was not on the account. So when it looked to say, is there ABC 123 license plate on account, and it said, no, we don't know who this is, then if your transponder read, and now we have the toll by plate transaction, they can't filter it out because it doesn't know to associate it to your account. Once you get the bill and they say, oh, well, we need to add your license plate to your account, then they would filter it, and if it was a duplicate, they would see it then.
But what happens if somehow my transponder has been flipped over to somebody else? In other words, that transponder, it hit the transponder. It says transponder da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but it's not associated with that license plate.
But it doesn't, the transponder doesn't know what vehicle, it knows what vehicle's in the lane, so it associates it to your vehicle. And the image is taken of that, but what I'm saying is, if it went through and it didn't read the transponder, that's the only time we take the picture.
It read the
Take a picture all the
transponder.
time.
Well,
It discarded.
we don't
Yeah,
save
they get
them.
discarded, right,
Only the ones that don't have a good transponder read.
right.
Not all images are saved.
You take a picture of every car, okay?
And we only save the ones that we don't get a good transponder read on. Otherwise, you'd be saving millions of.
No, but then it goes back to the question, what if somehow my transponder, somehow, somewhere during this process, is not registering to that license plate anymore? What happens?
Not following.
Steve,
In other
what's
words,
happening?
somewhere in this, in cyberspace, okay, my transponder number somehow is now mixed up with somebody else's license plate. What happens?
Steve, yeah,
Because they're separate.
right.
That's what I said about the filtering part. The transaction, if it read your.
No, you don't understand. This transponder, okay, is now, somehow they think that it's his car, okay? But it's on my car. I go through, it hits the transponder, okay? It gets billed.
Sure.
To me, okay? But it looks for his car. His car's not there, my car's there, okay?
That could happen.
Oh, could? Well, I see, I told you something could happen, right?
No, it could happen.
So it could happen,
Yep.
right? So that may also be another issue, that somehow during this whole transfer stuff, well, don't say no, okay? Don't give me that, okay? That somehow when all this was done, my transponder somehow is now they think it's on somebody else's car.
Your transponder is to your account only, nobody else's.
Yeah, I may be paying it, but
Hey.
but when you take the image, it's looking for him, not for me. You understand what I'm saying?
Can I make a suggestion, Mr.
Sure, okay. We'll do that, we'll figure this out later. Okay.
So what we have is a large amount of transactions, a large amount,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands, millions of them, that were delayed in terms of billings. We have $22 million worth of shortfalls in our budget. If you do that, if you multiply that times 20 cents or 50 cents, you start to realize that there's over 10 million or 8 million of these things that have not been issued. And now they're going through the process of issuing them. So there's a bunch of little things that have to happen when that charge goes through. It needs to go to your account. But when you have millions of them, it's easy to imagine that the computer system is just not working the way that it was intended to, because this is a batch process. This was something that was delayed, and that's what's happening. That would be my speculation, is that somehow these fields are not mapping properly and that there's some errors in the outputs. But I think that your perspective needs to be to kind of get a sense for how big the issue is, to kind of directionally, it'll change. This is not the issue about his $1.50. It's the issue about, do we have 500,000 invoices out there that should not be out there?
Start with that, see if that's the case, and then.
No, you don't start with that. You start with asking, how many invoices have we issued? And if the number is an anomaly that makes no sense to your expectations, then you have a massive problem. If that number makes sense and it has an order of magnitude that is adequate to your backlog, then you can go and solve the $3 that are here. But I would go for the big one, because if we don't catch it early, there might be 100,000 homes that are getting these things. That's the problem that we need to address, not the why is my transponder not working?
I agree. Now, so I'm going to do a quick poll of everybody in this room, okay? Everybody in this room. Anybody in this room who's gotten a toll-by-plate bill, even though you have a SunPass? Wow. We got a big problem. It's unscientific. It maybe everybody that got it wrong is in this room at this point, okay? Maybe, but I doubt it.
Board members,
Was that a little sarcasm?
the message is delivered, the issue.
This is an urgent,
This is
urgent
absolutely
matter.
urgent.
This is
And
tomorrow
as
morning matter.
Members, and I have had conversations with the Turnpike Director. We've asked for information. It is hard, as Marie said, they're having issues with reporting. I think the bigger issues, when they migrated all the data at once, that was where there might be issues, and I think we need, with reporting, we could figure it out, but they can't take lightly that this is happening, because the good name of SunPass, that took 25 years to get to, has been wiped clean in the last 6 months because of this issue. And that is not an MDX issue. That is a state of Florida issue. So the message has been delivered, and it is being reiterated because I know they're listening.
Our problem was on I-75.
I invited, by the way, I invited everybody in Dade County who got one. That's why they're here. I think we have a really, really big issue, because I think that at least 50%, more than 50% of the people put their hands up. So this
More than
is a
50% of the
big
board.
issue. This is a big issue, okay? All right, so, General Counsel, you're done. The TPO representative report?
Thank you very much, and in the spirit of time, I will highlight my highlights that I've put in the package. Just to make my case, MPO is a planning board, MDX is an implementation board. And the reason I'm saying this is in due respect to the lobbyists that are in the audience. The TPO had done a resolution in the last meeting that, and I've put that in my notes, but to highlight it, it was MDX failure to pay the participation fee included, but was not limited to a possible expulsion from the TPO governing board. The participation fee we spoke about, and we went over it, and we voted on it in October 30th, that we were not going, all but one member voted in favor of not paying the participation fee, because the participation fee is to hire lobbyists and go on trips. So I was at that meeting, and Commissioner Moss moved to defer it, so it's out there. The other highlight was that Mayor Oliver Gilbert was elected chair, and Commissioner Esteban Bobo was elected vice chair. And there was some conversation back and forth about going to the educational meeting that prior to this was always paid by federal funds, not by the participation fees. So read my highlights, please. I'm asking you to read them because I don't want to go over them, and thank you for letting me have the time. And I did say that I didn't take it personal, but I wasn't under oath when I was on the TPO. I just leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Any comments on,
Just one.
Yeah.
This is the best TPO report that I have seen in 3 years. Thank you very much.
Well, staff thanked for their help also.
Mr. Mayor, do we want to revisit the issue about the 22,000? If based upon the fact that, like, again, things have changed since October 30th, and the fact that this is, we could show solidarity with the remainder of Miami-Dade County if we just agree to pay the 22. It was never about the money. It was always about what the money was used for.
why don't we take it up at the end of the meeting as, as new items, or
Okay,
let me see,
that's fine.
where is it? Yeah, we can add it on, discussion items, et cetera, because I think that's also where I want to take up the resolution
And
1901.
if you would allow me to speak on that then.
Fair enough.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Treasurer's report.
Good evening. Marie, if you'd like to give a rundown of where we're at as far as the Treasury report, and then I'll highlight some things.
Well, I had a positive spin, but I think I'm going to refrain from my comments, given what we just discussed on SunPass. Total revenue has a negative variance of $22 million. Based upon the discussions we had with the Turnpike, some past customers that need to bring their account up to date is about 18 million, and then toll by plate is about 19 million. So there is over $30 million that has not been recognized. Obviously, we're going to do a thorough analysis to make sure that none of our customers are affected. If there's anything that is not correct in the billing. We have done an update on our cash position to look at our construction through January through June. Can we have enough from a revenue perspective to complete those construction projects and meet the cash flow of that? And I believe that we're in a good position at this point in time. We'll continue to monitor it on a monthly basis to see where the construction projects are to make sure that we're able to meet our commitments.
And if I may, before you ask our question, I think it's important to note the amount that is still outstanding based upon that. So I think it's like 37 million that is based on the numbers you
Roughly.
counted. Which would mean that if we start recollecting, that $22 million shortfall that we currently have should start reducing. Is that correct, Maria? Or is that a fair assessment?
That is correct. That's a fair assessment.
Okay. And when did the bills or the notices start going out to the individuals?
I believe 70% of the backlog has gone out so far.
Okay. But now, board members, if you recall, one of the things that was relevant is that there was a discussion that they're going to be given an extended amount of time to satisfy some of this outstanding debt. Am I mischaracterizing, or is that an accurate prescription?
That is correct.
Okay. So we may not see that right away. It may take towards the end of the budgetary year for us to finally get caught up.
Till end of March is when it's due.
And obviously, Mr. Mayor, you brought up you have as a discussion item the frequent SunPass commuter program. I'd like to talk about that in a financial aspect, but at that time, not necessarily now.
Okay? Board member, board.
Marie, the shortfall is 22 million. Did you just say that your expectation is that we are going to get 37? Is that what?
No, my statement was that based upon the information I received from SunPass.
Right.
And we looked at what is due to MDX, where are the different buckets, so to speak. About 16 million is from SunPass customers that accounts need to be updated, okay? So they had negative balances. So they're giving a time period to bring up again. And then toll by plate is roughly around 19 million.
Right.
I do not expect to collect the entire $35 million.
Wait, so 35 million is the number that they are reporting that might be due to us, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if I take your year-to-date budget is about 116 million. Our shortfall is 22. If we believe their $35 million number, that would put us $13 million over, correct or not?
That is correct, but I just want to caveat, that information is based upon May, so there's about 2 months of prior fiscal year in that number.
And if I may, I'm sorry, when you're done with your question.
Right, so.
So it is high, and we looked at,
Right.
speaking to
if
the
it is-
traffic consultants, we looked at what's happening with traffic. It's pretty much flat at this point in time. So through this fiscal year, it is flat. Until we get the reporting information, I can't come back to you and say, hey.
Agreed. I mean, I know that these things are not in sync, but directionally, we have not had a year where the budget has exceeded, where the actual has exceeded the budget by
Not to
about
that
2%,
not
1%.
correct.
I mean, that's the undercount that we use, about 2%. So if that number is getting closer to, it's looking like more like 8 or 9 or 10%, intuitively, I know that there's alarms going inside your head going, that there's an overstated revenue number here, correct? And that number is now of an order of magnitude.
Yes.
Mr. Treasurer, that is 6, 7, 8% of the year to date.
May I ask a follow-up question based upon what you're asking? What percentage of toll by plate money is generally not collected? Because it's tourists, people that come through, of that amount, we would never expect to collect all of it to begin with. Is that a fair assessment as well? Because percentages of that, I know over the years, percentages of the toll by plate.
But trend analysis, whatever we bill in a given fiscal year.
Bill is different than
Usually
collected.
about 60 to 65% of the toll by plate gets paid in the current year, and then it goes into a collection process.
Right.
When it's all said and done over a 2.5-year period, it's roughly around 85 to 87%.
But over a 2-year plan, we may not see that in this budget.
Correct. But I believe what Mr. Board is saying is that, you know, you have an expectation based upon your traffic trends. Does the revenue correlate to that? I mean, we can't necessarily isolate what the issue is, but again, if you look at traffic and you budget traffic based upon average toll rate, this is what your expectation is on the total revenue.
Right.
Traffic is flat.
Right.
So we do not, you know, expect to exceed this year's fiscal budget on a toll.
And then, thank you for clarifying that. And you're right then, Mr. Board, there is something wrong with these numbers then. I think what the mayor has brought up, these are just too high, because what I was trying to clarify is, what's the expectation number in comparison to what is actually collected? Because I know from years, and you know this because you've been here too, the percentage of what is collected on the toll by plates is not the same amount as we expect, because there is a percentage that just isn't collected. Not during that same budget. But the fact that it's expected, I agree with you, there needs to be, and since unfortunately right now we have a history that the system that is being used for the toll by plate clearly has some problems, I think we need to look at this some more.
We definitely, have to look at it some more.
And it's not like us being difficult. They had a problem getting us here. It's not like it's not, we're not reinventing the wheel. They were in trouble or having issues, and that's why we're here now, because they were the system wasn't working.
Board members, we'll get the data, we'll analyze it, we'll bring it to you, and if we have to bring the Turnpike staff here to address, we will bring the Turnpike staff and the vendors to address our questions, because it's a bigger issue than what is being portrayed, and it is something that we've been alarming. We have been ringing the alarm for a while on this, and it's going to be our fault here in the urbanized area.
Of course it is.
And that's the bottom line.
Let me ask a question. If you put in the budget $22 million, we're short for is $22 million, right? Right now?
I'd like to say that it's a delay at this point in time rather than.
Okay, the delay is $22 million. But the billing is 30, how much? 30 what?
The toll by plate invoice customers are 19 million.
What do you mean 19 million?
Meaning that there's two components of the $30 million that we were talking
The
about.
$22 million?
No. The $22 million is the actual revenue through June for the 6th month of the fiscal year compared to the budget. So the negative variance is $22 million.
Okay, all right.
When we spoke to the CCSS, the Turnpike, we said, okay, how much is out there that has not been billed or still owed to MDX? So there's two components of what is owed to the MDX.
All right.
There's a component that they've allowed customers to go through the system that their SunPass account has not been updated or they didn't have an automatic replenishment. That number is roughly 16 million. 19 million is for toll by plate customers who do not have a SunPass. That is where we come up with 35 million that they have represented that is outstanding to us.
That's too high. Right, because again, because I think our problem, it may be that somehow they think our accounts haven't been replenished.
It could be.
Would you expect that number, though? Is that the number you expect? In order for us to be within a percent or two, what would you think is still outstanding? And what would you think is a reasonable number?
I think that no.
Well, you have a collection, you collected 85%, so it'd have to be more, higher than 22, but not, it wouldn't be 35.
No.
Okay?
No.
What would the number be?
You know, the toll by plate customers, I think, is a little bit high. I think it's somewhere, I would think maybe it's somewhere around 15 million. On the SunPass component of it, it's a little bit new to us, but based upon our prior experience, that has been, and prior to this contract, we've always been guaranteed. If a customer's account had not been a current account, we got paid automatically. And that was roughly around $2 to $3 million. They did change the balance to let customers go through the system. So the 16 million, I really don't have a gauge for.
Yeah, and what would you have expected on that side? 2 to 3 million?
There's about 2 and 3 million a month.
Okay, all right.
You agree on the sun pass? Yep.
What's that in total?
It's, you're talking about almost 8 months' worth? Yep. Yep.
Okay, any other,
Would like to discuss a little bit of the issues relating to the frequent commuter program, but at that time, I don't need to discuss.
Fair
it
enough.
now. Thank you
Okay.
for that.
okay, all right. Regular agenda, item 7A.
Approval of locally funded agreement between MDX and Florida Turnpike Enterprise for improvements made to State Road 924 connecting to the Heft, endorsed by the OECI Committee on January 31st, 2019, $5,220,000. Come on, Mr. Toledo.
I'll move.
It's been moved, do I have a second? Second. Okay, moved and second for discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item passes. 7B.
Item B, approval of purchase order for LED roadway lighting endorsed by the OECI Committee on January 31st, 2019, not to exceed $600,000.
7B, do I have a motion? Been moved, do I have a second? It's been moved and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item approved. 7C.
Approval of Tech Committee recommendation to select all 4 proposers for the legislative advocacy and consultant services endorsed by the Tech Committee on January 31st, 2019, not to exceed $180,000 per contract for a total of $720,000.
So move.
Second.
What was the recommendation again?
The recommendation is to accept all 4 proposals.
All 4 proposals, but not adjusting the contract amount?
No, we were,
Adjusting the amount.
It depends on the way you look at it. We would
Adjusting the total budget, but each contract would have the same dollar amount.
Correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
Say that again?
Adjusting the total budget amount, but each contract would be the same amount, $60,000 per legislative session for 3 years.
Okay. What was the original budgeted amount for this?
It's $180,000 per contract for a 3-year term. So now with 4,
Okay. The original was $180,000 for 3 years.
Yes, sir.
What's the proposal now?
contract.
No. What the original was, we figured it was going to be 1 contract,
It was
right?
going to be 2.
2 contracts?
Potentially 2.
180 per contract?
Yes.
Correct.
there's something wrong here with the math. It should be 90, not 60.
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, then yes, then it would be 180 for both contracts. My apologies, correct.
Right, it's 90
Yeah,
per.
90 per.
Yeah, it's 90 per, it's not.
No.
90 per, is that for 3 years, or is that for 1 year, or what is that?
It's
This is
60,000 a year.
This is
so
math. Guys, this is math. It's 60,000
This is
per
3 years.
contract per year for 3 years, that's 180,000.
So I was right
Times
about
2 would be 360, times 2 would be 720 for a 3-year period if we go with all 4 of them.
Got it.
That's it, the math is right.
That's fine.
The only thing is
I
that we don't assume that the board was going to select 2. The contract allows the board to go
got
up
it.
to 2 when we advertised it.
I understand.
So the agenda item report only reflected 1 contract, which was 180 for 3 years.
Got it.
If the board goes with 2, that's doubled. If the board goes with 4, it gets quadrupled.
I understand the board, go ahead, Vice Chairman, before I make my comments, go ahead.
So, Board Member Gutierrez, maybe you would consider, instead of having a 3-year scope, a shorter scope of time? I know, but I'm
Yeah, I think that would cause an issue, because then we are changing the way the procurement, the providing no capricious, no competitive advantage to the other 2 that are now included in the 4 pool is the key to why going with the 4 works. In looking at the budget, I don't think that should be of any concern, because if we don't put up the correct fight against this particular bill and what's going on, in Tallahassee now, and we seize the moment now, you know, Miami-Dade County as a whole will lose billions with the B, instead of what is over a 3-year period, $720,000. It's nothing. It's pennies that you will see, and they will have the outcry. I think it's very important to look past that and consider the importance of now that you have an opportunity to go with all 4 teams, which are exceptionally qualified to do the job and to go out fighting. Given the fact that we also have a mayor as our chairman, we cannot afford to go forward without the best and all possible best foot forward, and win this issue in the best possible way.
Mr. Secretary?
Concerned about raising the amount. Staff apparently considered that either 180 or 360 was adequate funding. We're looking at doubling that. That's a lot of money. I have a question for staff. Does this contract allow for supplemental agreements to increase the dollars after execution?
Well, procurement policy allows us to increase the contract amount. It has different thresholds depending on the amount.
In the future? In the
In the
future?
future, yes.
So if we went with a lower amount here and that turned out to be inadequate, we could supplement at a later date.
Yes.
I don't know why we need to raise to 720.
Mr. Chair, I think the key is to keep all 4 firms whole in the amount and the expectations of what the RFQ was about. In addition to, I look at it this way. This is a board and this is a body that we are the policymakers. And we're here to safeguard the people of this community. So we have the opportunity to do it now. So why are we discussing this? This is a no-brainer.
If I also may comment.
Sure. Before I make mine, I'll make mine at the end. Go ahead.
Of course. No, if you want to comment now, sir. The issue here is, I understand where you're coming from, Secretary, about increasing the budget. But when we issued out this RFP for $360,000, this legislation was not out there. What has occurred in the last 60 days has changed the dynamics of what we're dealing with. This is not in any way, shape, or form your traditional type of battle between us and the state. This is a much more aggressive and much more.
Careful, he works for the state.
I'm not talking about.
Careful, he works for the state.
And
Secretary of FDOT.
I'm an MDX board member.
I am not, Ms. Gutierrez, if I may, I am not in any way, shape, or form questioning DOT or any of the executives. I'm talking about there is a legislative battle going on right now that is not expected. Also, what is remarkable in my experience is doing this is there were all 4 teams are usually qualified that have individual distinctions with them that make them all very beneficial to MDX. If Representative Avila's legislation had not been issued, I would feel very comfortable having just 2 teams. What I don't want to do is for us, looking down the line, where for really a small amount of our budget, because we were expecting to pay $360,000, so we're looking to just increase that another $360,000, we are able to ensure that we have all our guns a-blazing in a way to try to alleviate these concerns. That is why I understand, and I feel that this is something that should at least be considered by the board.
And if I may, before we move forward with the discussion, Chair, let me correct something that I said. We could reduce the contract amount, but we would have to reduce the scope. We can't just reduce the contract amount because it is the retainer for the scope of services that we're contracting them for. So unless the scope of services has been reduced, we couldn't just reduce their.
Board members, can I offer something? And it's contracting. The contract is 3 years, up to three years. But all of our contracts can be terminated at any time, 30-day notice by the board. The budgeting is done on an annual basis. annually. This year, when we set up the budget, we set aside $60,000. The committee asked us to increase it to $120 to give flexibility for hiring up to 2. What we would have to come up with, if the board decision was to go with all 4, is to make up $120,000 in the current fiscal year. And then in the budgeting process, we would be budgeting $240,000, at which time the board can decide whether this is an issue that needs to continue at $60,000 a year, whether we need to reduce the scope, whether we do need to make any kind of adjustments, or just go ahead and budget $240,000 in the following fiscal year. And then the same analysis gets done the next budgeting year.
Everybody done?
I have another comment.
Go ahead.
Based on staff saying that there is a defined scope, so it can't be arbitrarily reduced, it was not anticipated that there would be 4 firms. So I wonder if there is duplication of effort. I haven't read the contract, but perhaps there's something in there that says do a report at the end of the session as to what occurred. That would be logical.
Yes.
Does that mean we're going to end up with 4 reports?
Yes.
Or other types of work that were envisioned to be one contract, we're now doing 4 times?
Yes.
Answer.
Staff would recommend picking one as the lead firm, and there will be one report representing our team. We have one team, just like the county has, just like the city has. They all have multiple lobbyists, like Broward County, like almost every city in Dade County. Multiple teams, one lead, and one report.
Yes, board member, go ahead.
This is just from the heart. I've been to a lot of tech meetings and lots of presentations. In all the years that I've done this, is the first time that I have the inclination to go with all 4. The presentations were out of the park. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, here are my comments. I don't like bullets. I don't like dodging bullets. And if we up this double the price of what we thought we were going to get it for, I'm going to be dodging a bullet. And we're going to be dodging a bullet. It may not be worth the bad publicity that we're going to get, because we now are doubling our efforts and doubling the price for lobbying, because we now have seen a bill that we don't like. I think it sounds good, but it may hurt us more than help us. So I don't have a problem with the 4. I don't have a problem with, looking at how well they did in the future. But I have a problem with doubling this right now. I can see it coming, because that's what I would do. That's exactly how I would attack you. Okay, so that's exactly how I would go to the radio and say, look what they're doing. That's exactly, sorry for speaking this way, but I'm a tactician. I know how to attack when I want to attack. And so I'm looking at us and says, how would I attack MDX right now? That's exactly how to attack you. And we'd lose in the court of public opinion. So I don't mind. I think, I wasn't here. I think all 4 firms are great, fantastic, all right? But I'm not in favor of upping the price at this point. So, yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
So my concerns are different. My concerns are that if our arguments are strong, then I think that we have, with 2 teams, we have enough reach to be able to have the granularity and the conversations with the people that we need to have it. I think if I'm on the other side of that, if I'm just going to make up a position, the speaker, and he starts seeing that there are 4 firms calling, or that this is all happening, I think it shows that we are afraid, and that as opposed to having the right argument that we need to buy is influence. And I think that there's a balance in that. I thought that your arguments are very strong, Maritza, in that in terms of scale and size of the budget, I agree with you. In terms of the consequences of if we lose this, that the community will be deeply affected. But I think it's tactics that also count. You know, that form issue was my concern. But there is a strong argument on your side also. So it's a worthy, debatable item.
Chairwoman of the County Commission, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was trying to stay quiet on this one, but I think it can be interpreted as a power struggle. And once you start with a power struggle, it's going to continue on. And I can guarantee you they will win. And that's the way it can be interpreted in Tallahassee.
Board Member Martinez.
I think all of the arguments are very valid. Our board 2 years ago was reduced from 9 to 13. 13 to 9. Individuals who were here were basically allowed to leave. Then we had our forced law requiring us to, the CPI, and that's going to affect our bonds that we may have to challenge. We then had another law that was passed that indicated that if we didn't follow a law that may or may not be constitutional, we were all going to be removed from this board. And through every single one of those processes, we had one lobbyist or two lobbyists. We didn't want to get into an argument. We didn't want to show a power struggle. So all of those questions I respect and I understand, and for 9 years I have been on that page. This is the most aggressive legislation and position that I've seen. And I am again concerned that if we have different teams that all can provide different services because they have different relationships with different individuals, it can benefit us in this circumstance. 99 times out of 100, I would be 1,000% in agreement not to increase the budget. For the backlash, I would agree with all of that. But we have done it that way for 9 years, and we're here again, and we're in the same position where they have actually upped the ante. Mr. Mayor, we lowered the tolls. We reduced them 5%. We basically agreed with everything about that legislation except for increasing the CPI. And the response to that was another bill to get rid of us. I don't know. This isn't a power struggle. This is trying to get as many. And the other important part of that is, Leonard, and I think you were right, every single team talked passionately about how important MDX is for this community. Every single one of the teams talked about how important the Parkway was. There was none of them that in any way, shape, or form showed any lack of appreciation or respect for our accomplishments. I don't think it's in this point a pertinent position to, and I see where you're coming from, but we're getting blasted no matter what we do. I think sometimes we have to take a more aggressive position. 99 times out of 100, I would be in favor of only having two. This is unique. At the end of the day, it's the voters, it's the decision of the board.
Let me respond to that by saying this. If you somehow think that this battle or this is won just in Tallahassee, it's not. It's the battle is won by winning the hearts of the people of Miami-Dade County.
I understand that.
If we make this move, I believe that you have gone a long way in losing the hearts of the people of Miami-Dade County. So like I said, I can see this bullet coming. I want to step out of the way of it, because that's how it attack you. And by the way, that's the only thing I would say for the next 2 months. Okay? And so you've got to win. In order for us to be successful, let's see if we can we can be reasonable and with the folks that are putting this together. But at the end, it's really about what the people of Miami-Dade County think, because they're politicians too, all right? And so, my attempt initially was to start to give education and also to show the folks why this may be a bad thing. If we double this lobbying, lobbying is not a real popular thing with people, okay, and the general population, okay, I'm telling you that right now. So if you double this budget, I certainly will not vote in favor of doubling the budget. I may not be opposed to having the 4 firms, and again, looking at this sometime in the future about their work and how much they've put into it. I think that the amount that we have for right now works for at least 1 year, maybe 2, all right? And then we can look at it in the future, all right? I guess pretty much in line with what you said, Mr. Secretary. There are different ways to skin cats, and I'd rather skin it in this fashion right now. That's my personal perspective, and if we double this, I will be answering this question. The thing I can say is I wasn't in favor of it, okay? So, but I'll be answering this question, and right now, I'm the face of this right now. I'm the one out there, all right? And so, again, I'd rather not give a potential opponent a bullet to put in their chamber.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
I fully understand what you're saying, that you are the face of MDX. You're also the face of Miami-Dade County. But what's at stake at this time is that the people of Miami-Dade County will lose transportation dollars that have been here for 20-something years, will lose to the state of Florida. They will no longer have an opportunity or a say to keep the dollars here. They will no longer have an opportunity to stand up and say, I need this road, I need this access road, I want a discount program. That's why I would be against any discount program that would have the name of SunPass, because that's an unknown entity that everybody wonders where they are, who they are, but I would say a frequent commuter discount program that is a frequent Miami-Dade commuter program. Again, what I go back to, in losing the public opinion has been lost over time, because no matter what, this agency is a toll agency. It could never win public opinion because of the sheer nature of what it does. But it's making those hard decisions of it is a toll agency, putting back the dollars and leaving them in Miami-Dade County and spending them properly in Miami-Dade County. The task at hand today is an advocacy group, 4 teams that are exceptionally qualified, that have a massive bill that would basically do away with 20-something years of labor that has been. It will say bye-bye, so long we don't see it, the Kendall Parkway. I think that if we don't put our big girl, big boy shoes on and send a lot of ground troops to work under one strategic plan and group that's organized to go hit the ground running immediately and cover all the territory necessary, this would be lost. It would be one voice, one unified voice, and yes, of course, you would be the leader, but you would be the leader in having a lot of people being able to cover the territory, because at the end of the day, it has a lot to do with relationships. And what is 120,000 more that's going to affect our budget now when Miami-Dade County people will lose billions?
I have one question. If this agency goes out of existence on July 1st, how can you have a 3-year contract?
Well, we have plenty of contracts that will be done July 1st. I mean, we're just planning.
But if this group is not successful,
right, then no one's
they
been
won't get anything, right, after that,
No,
right?
I mean, they'll get the
Okay.
first year's pay, I
All right,
think.
so how much possibly could be spent until July 1st?
I think it's the first year. It's 1 year of $60,000 each team.
Exactly what you have. Absolutely. Just nailed it. In other words, why are we worrying about 3 years when we need to worry about right now, this moment in time of what needs to be addressed? There's much more to lose than there is to win. The winning of spending this is nothing into what's going to be lost for Miami-Dade County.
So the treasurer asked the question of all the teams, which was, how do we solve this on a global basis, right? You were trying to find a holistic solution that would sit there permanently.
Right, and I tried to make sure I answered to all the things.
So and it was a great question. From my perspective, every organization that has any scale, whether it's public, private, profit, or nonprofit, always struggles with headquarters versus regional versus local versus state government versus federal. I think that ebb and flow comes and goes. And right now, we're at the receiving end of that. So, coming from the regional side, they want to get more and more influence in the activity. But for many years, listening to you speak, for many years you had a lot of autonomy. And that autonomy, there was no influence, there was little influence, right? So this is part of being part of an organization. We're always going to have, whether we're a little bit on top or we're a little bit under. So I think that the only way that we're going to win this is by having the right arguments and by being and by delivering the message of what are the consequences of these actions. And I'm not sure that saying it 4 times, to use the improper metaphor, but I'm not sure that saying it 4 times makes the argument any better, as opposed to, I'm really afraid. And that's why I am using more influence than reason, would be my point. But it might be naive on my part in terms of believing that the reasonable argument will prevail, and that might be true.
If I may, Mr. Chair. It's not
Yes,
about
Board Member.
repeating it, thank you. It's not about repeating it to the same person 4 times. It's about the reach, okay? It's about the connections in a Dade County delegation that they seem to have like a brotherhood. So in breaking that brotherhood connection that seems to fall again and again, we need to now broaden our reach to go across Florida and penetrate all the other people that were also going to be sitting in those committees and voting. So by having this broad team, we now go in and can penetrate the people that are the decision makers in the state of Florida for this. Because if you say that, reasoning, we've had the discount program, we lowered the tolls, we've basically come in and done everything. And what they're actually doing is setting a precedent that no contract in the state of Florida with the state is actually a valid contract. That's what they're saying, because this expressway was purchased. This expressway was purchased with the people's money from here, and the state, the same people that signed and gave us the authority and the right to do it, are the same people that we're now going after and addressing and trying to convince and say, excuse me, guys, you basically are saying no contract is really valid, because today I feel like I'm going to get rid of MDX. So we deserve, the people of this county deserve a fighting chance, deserve to have a dream team, if I may say something like that, that has a very broad reach to bring in the conversation and landed, we need to stop it once and for all. Hey, listen, I pay the tolls. I'll pay the tolls. The tolls are not going away. But yet the headlines aren't helping MDX, so the public opinion is already lost. The funny thing about it is there'll be a CPI that will happen every year. And the beauty of this is the winners of winning this opportunity, it has three names. So far, three names. The Lieutenant Governor, Janet Nunez, Avila, and also Manny, if he does proceed. So, hey, what else is there to say?
We've toned down rhetoric.
No, listen,
Every board member has the right to express their opinion. It's not the four that concerns me, it's the amount. So I have, I think that, I don't know how many we have in Miami-Dade County. We have more than one lobbying team, obviously. And we know the importance of having, a good team up there to not only with the sponsors of the bill, but everybody else that's up there to understand what the issues are. And we can't be there. That's why you have lobbyists. The amount is the issue that I have. And so the dollar amount is the issue that I have. So I don't want to spend more than what we have anticipated here. How much have we spent for lobbying before?
Our contract was $110,000 a year.
yeah, so,
So we're paying that.
We were thinking of getting not to exceed 180,000 for, the original was one? Was that for one?
For 3 years.
With the possibility of having two?
We were,
Amount of 180?
yes, sir.
what was 110 per year?
Yes. Okay. 120, okay.
For one, and that was for one team, I believe.
Helen, if I may paraphrase where they are right now, I think the board has an option.
Could
Yeah.
the motion be read?
Yeah,
Well-
you can read the motion that's on the table now.
What you're actually voting on is whether we're going to change the actual contract, because, or the rules of the, for lack of better words, the rules of the game. We said we were going to go one or maybe two, and then the idea was floated before, and the analysis would be, if it's in the best interest of MDX, we can do that, but also, does it give anybody competitive advantage or harm someone? I think that if we originally said two, and we're taking four, but we're not increasing, or everybody's getting the same amount, then I think that there'd be an argument that we are harming a team. And that's what we're discussing now, whether we're going to take all four. If not, we'll go back, open up the tech, and go through the analysis of ranking all the teams that were discussed.
And taking the top two.
Yeah, I want to recess for about 5 minutes, okay? So we'll recess for about 5 minutes. Thank you. Comments on this issue. Can we have the motion restated again, please?
After it is, I would like to make a comment.
Sure. Approval of Tech Committee recommendation to select all four proposals for the Legislative Advisory Consulting, endorsed by the Tech Committee on January 31st, 2019, not to exceed $180,000 per contract.
3 years.
Yes, sir.
That's $60,000 per year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And we had, was it moved and seconded? Okay. And Board Member Martinez.
Mr. Mayor, I think something that is relevant is that I will tell you without any circumstances, there are individuals from Tallahassee watching this meeting as we speak, and they are involved in this entire matter, and they're already blogging about it. They're already commenting about the amount of lobbyists that we may or may not be hiring. So your predictions actually have already come to fruition, and we haven't even finished the meeting yet.
That's why I'm the mayor, man. Okay? I've been around the block a couple of times, so I know exactly what's going on. So I do not want to exceed the dollar amount that we spend. I do not want to do that. Now, it can be overridden by this board, all right? But I do not, all right? And so, there's a motion and there's a second. I would hope that the board members do not accept the motion and that we find another solution to this issue because, again, as you said, it's already been, the bullets are already starting to fly. And I don't want any more bullets. I don't want to get into this. We've spent $120,000 a year. Is that what we spend normally? Yes. Okay. I don't think we should exceed that. So, I guess you know how I'm going to vote. Are there any other comments on this? Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to add one more comment. What we're basically talking about, adding to the budget for this year would be $120,000 more to the budget this year. That's what we would be addressing. It's not 60 because there was a pool, so it would be 120. If the pool increases to 4, it would be 120,000. Because why are we concerned about 2 and 3 when we should be concerned about 1? Thank you.
The operative word to me was more. I guess you'll know how I'm going to vote. I do not want to spend any more money that we normally spend on lobbying. So that's what I'm going to be. Yes.
My understanding of the motion as it stands is that we would approve for 3 years. And yet all the case has been that this year we need extra lobbying. Now that could be debatable, but we don't believe that we need it in years 2 and 3. And yet we're going to be obligating a retainer. And they will be paid for services we don't need in years 2 and 3. That's my conclusion here. It's not structured properly.
Yes, ma'am.
If I can offer, I guess, what I feel like the options are for us right now based on the discussion. I think that the predicament that we're in is that we want bigger reach of the legislators, but we don't want to increase our budget. So we either reduce the budget, which we can do because of the way that we advertised it, unless the proposers would agree to that. And if all 4 of them are here, we can potentially pose the question. If they agree with that, we can potentially move forward with that.
No, we can't.
I'm just putting the options on the table for discussion by this board. Option number 2 is that we go back to the committee, to the technical evaluation committee, rank the proposers, and select either 1 or 2 based on the ranking, as it was outlined in the RFQ, or we would have to throw this out and start all over again. Those are the 3 options that we have before us.
3 is not the option.
Any discussions?
Option 3 is not an option.
Say what? Vote on the item. Okay. All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Edmondson? Alphabetically. Ms. Fano? Yes. Ms. Gutierrez? Yes. Martinez?
No.
No.
Chair Board?
No.
Chair Jimenez? Motion
No.
fails.
Motion fails.
Because I am not going to, because I don't like the fact that we're going to catch heat because of it.
Excuse me? Oh, I know that. That's what I said. Motion failed. No, I said failed. Motion failed. I said pass. I'm really losing it. Okay, all right, so.
So,
I even counted, okay?
then,
Oh, go ahead, yes.
we will resume after the board meeting to finish the tech, to rank the proposers accordingly. And And we'll move forward with what we originally had in the advertisement.
What?
I mean, first we close the board, go back to tech,
Yeah, you have to.
and then we have to go back to the board again.
Yes.
Yes?
You just pause the board and
Okay,
resume the tech, let them grade, turn it in.
What is the, what is the timeframe for that?
Tonight.
Today?
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to close the regular board meeting, and we're going to then open the technical review committee meeting. Commissioner Edmondson and I will, pizza? Sure, yeah, good, man, good, I'd go for that. But we also lost I think we lost one other board member, right, that was here for the technical review?
He left his voting, he left his ranking.
Already.
He left his rankings already. Okay, so we're adjourning the regular meeting. We are now convening the tech committee, and then Audrey, you and I can go have some pizza.
Well, Mr. Mayor Jimenez, you have some discussion items you want to take?
Pizza, man, come on. All
Sorry.
right, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, go ahead. No, we're not adjourning, we're just
Right.
pausing the regular meeting. All right,
Okay.
There's still
sorry.
discussion items.
No problem. Enjoy your pizza. He's going to eat pizza?
All right, so we're back on, we're reconvening the normal, today's board meeting, and we're back on 7C. 7C. What is the committee's recommendation?
The committee recommendation was to select the two top-ranked firms, which were Becker Polyakoff and Gray Robinson.
For how much?
The contract is for $60,000 a year for a 3-year term,
For each?
for each.
For each, which is what we're paying today?
Yes,
For lobbying? Has been paying forever for lobbying?
yes.
Sounds good to me. Okay, all right. Do we have a motion to accept the committee's recommendation? It's moved by the chairwoman.
Second.
Second by the vice chair. I'm sorry, the chairwoman of the county commission and the vice chair of MDX. Any discussion?
No more need.
You don't want to say anything?
No, I think all 14 are
Not
recommended.
surprising if he doesn't.
Okay, all right, yes.
I have nothing to say.
Okay. All right, surprisingly smooth. Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. We have no discussion. All in favor, I'm sorry, let's have a roll call. Roll call.
Commissioner Edmondson?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez? Mr. Martinez? Secretary Wolf?
Yes.
Vice Chair Board?
Yes.
Chair Jimenez?
Yes. Item fails. Kidding. Okay, it passed. Okay, the item passed. Very good. Thank you. I think that was, the right decision. And I hope that the two lobbying firms will represent us well in Tallahassee, and we look forward to working with you. Moving on to the next item, item number 8, discussion item.
Mr. Chairman, at your request, we brought forward typically discussion items are nothing more than a memo, and we have a discussion. Knowing the sensitivity of an item like this, what we did is we prepared an agenda item report. It was our first stab at it. We called it the Frequent SunPass Commuter Discount Program. Since it went out to the board members, I will tell you that it's our recommendation to change it to the Frequent MDX Commuter Discount Program. We would also recommend to the board, and this is, it was an oversight on our part. The way we structured this is that we would credit back to the account through the centralized back office, October, up to 15% for folks that met the threshold of $250 per year per transponder, which would be the more frequent of users, and there's a graph in the back of your table. In discussing this with various board members, and I couldn't speak to you individually until the public meeting, there was concerns that a credit back to the account would be lost in translation. And so the question was, can we do checks? And yes, we can do checks. It just will not be ready to go October 1st. So my recommendation is that if the board's pleasure is to go with a credit, it can be done by October 1st, because we close out our fiscal year and we just issue the credit to all the folks that qualify. If we're going to go with checks that we go back to the December timeline, which is what we traditionally had, we cut the checks here in staff. It is after they finish their job. It's thousands and thousands of checks that get prepared, validated, verified, and mailed out. And we ensure that very, very small percentage, Marie, it's like less than 1%, actually never get cashed, because we verify that these accounts are valid and the people cashed it, and we track it. So those would be the only two modifications that I would do. I structured it as an error so that if the board wants to elevate it to an action item, there is a record of the reasons, the background, and the actions and the impact.
Yes, Board Member Gutierrez.
Thank you so much. In regards to the name, I think that it would be a better name if we call it the Frequent Miami-Dade Commuter Discount Program, given that the discount is really only on the Miami-Dade expressways. Okay? The other thing that I question is, it talks about 2 axles. So what happens, and it does away with any other discount program. So what happens to the trucking program?
Nothing happens to the trucking. The multi-axle discount continues. It's actually in place right now, where we cap trucks at 3 axles. This was basically looking at the existing program that we have that had $100, and we modified it to increase the threshold, because we're already giving folks in the lower end of the spectrum, the infrequent users, the discount that we did back in July of 5 or 6%. So no, the 2-axle has to have a valid SunPass, and it has to be in good standing. No different than the current program.
Go ahead, you start.
One more question. Actually, it's a twofold question. Has the funding for this totally been vetted through finances, making sure that it's affordable and achievable to implement right away? And can it be done?
I may answer. That's exactly what I wanted to wait until here to say about Treasury. We haven't vetted it. That's one of the things I am concerned about, is the, if you recall during my report, I said that I wanted to talk about this here. It's exactly that. I am very concerned that I think it's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful thing to do, but we need to find out the financial implications. Since we've already, as we've done, we've reduced the tolls 5%, and there's a $15 million difference. I want to know how this is going to affect us as well. What are the numbers we are projecting this is going to be?
Well, the range that we came up with was about $3.5 million, and it will be programmed into the annual budget. On an annual basis, we update the work program and we update the financing plan, and, you know, we're going to have to manage the work program to align for the financing plan.
So this would be, just for clarification, this would be an additional $3.5 million that would not be available for us as far as our project plans. Okay.
Yes, Board Member Gutierrez.
I think the timing is now. It's sensitive to the discussion of what you're going to have, and to provide, again, additional toll relief to the toll payers and the users. It's a line item that goes into the budget, and you have to manage. And every time that you can have a savings, that's money that you consider that goes towards this benefit. It gives us time. The people deserve a relief. This is part of the discussion, and I think that it's sensitive, that it should be something that we consider today and now, and move it into a voting item.
I agree. I also believe that as long as we let the public know that the fact that these reductions could affect the timetable for our projects, we've done our responsibility, our fiduciary duty, that we are informing them that this could have an effect.
Not many.
That this is an appropriate thing to do, because we've always been advocates about either reducing tolls or giving rewards programs back. So I don't have a problem with doing it now. I just felt it was necessary, Mr. Chair and other members, that we be aware of the fact that there would be a financial, that not so much that there would be less money, but that it would affect our ability to do certain projects that are part of our 5-year project, which means some of those won't be done in 5 years, they may be done in 10. And that's just part of the reality. It's numbers at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Board Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. From the very beginning, the inception of this, I've been a strong proponent of it. I think it's a wonderful program. I'm glad that we're readdressing it. I wish we had never lost it. My question is, why do we have to change the name? We spend a lot of time and money branding it. Why can't we keep the same name and change the, whatever the criteria is for it? Why would we have to change the name? Everybody knows it by the cashback or the name that it has. Why? That's my question.
I would say that the frequent SunPass commuter discount program is actually a misnomer. It doesn't really identify the program. If I looked at it, it would say, okay, I'm a SunPass commuter, and wherever I do SunPass, I'm going to get a discount. It's not true. When you do SunPass on MDX, you're going to get a discount. So by changing the name, you actually are saying exactly what the program is versus now, okay.
It didn't say SunPass.
What did it say before?
Cashback, what was the exact? MDX cashback, which is a proper domain.
Okay.
I mean, if you put SunPass, and especially today with SunPass, what's going on, I definitely don't want to have SunPass. But I think keeping the name we have, what's the downside? Why can't we? Is there a legal problem? I mean,
No,
if
there's no
it's
legal
MDX cashback, it's to your point, sir.
If that was the original name, and that was the name that it said as MDX cashback program, and everybody knows it as that, I have no qualms with that. Yes, ma'am?
The only other open item, should the board take action on this, we are going to, the customers who are currently registered in the MDX cashback program would be automatically, they continue on, but we did not have an open enrollment period. So we're basically going to base retro from July 1st, 2018, and we close the books June 30th, so the next cashback would be in December of 2019. But we did not have an open enrollment for people to register for this fiscal year.
Understand. Now,
It's called, Your Honor, for clarification, Mr. Chair, we were provided with the actual name.
That is the name that's in the actual name that's in the website is the Frequent Driver Rewards Program. Cashback is what the customers recognized it when we did the,
I think the customers called it a cashback.
That's
No,
what
it's
they called
interesting,
it.
because coincidentally, today in the elevator coming to this meeting at the college, somebody said, you really need to bring back the cashback
Yeah.
All of that.
today.
That's what everybody.
agree.
I said, I agree with you.
But we
All
will
right, question. I guess I got the answer to this, but I want everybody to understand why the sign-up, right? Because I was unaware that we don't have the information from the actual, I guess,
transponder account.
right, who that is. We
Right.
just get a number. We don't know who to send that to, and so the only way that we could know that I
They
have
give us the information.
that particular SunPass number is by you signing up with us, because we don't get that information. Is it possible for us to get that information?
Yes.
So now then the question goes to, okay, so one of the issues that I guess if I were, asking is, okay, if I don't sign up for this and I spend more than $240, is $240 or $250? $250. If I spend more than $250, then if I don't sign up, then I'm not going to get this cash back. So I have to take this step in order to get this cash back. That may be an issue, okay? By the same token, different, that $250 is different to different folks. Some people will pay $250, it's not a big deal to them, okay? For some people, $250 is a lot of money, and anything back means a lot to them. That's why they would take the time to do that. But those folks, maybe there is a digital divide, all right? And so they may not, the ones that actually need it may not be able to or don't know how to, sign up for the program. So I want to make sure that the folks that really need this, get it back. I guess it's a rhetorical question. I don't have the answer to this yet. I don't even know where I stand on it yet. Whether we should have a sign up or should it be an automatic. If it were automatic, then it would obviously decrease the cash back to each individual, right? But how many of those folks do we know how many of the folks Well, we wouldn't know that. How many of the folks that actually, transponders that had more than $250 a year actually signed up? Do we know? What percentage? Do we know that?
Somewhere around there. Right, and the program that is before you, unlike the previous program, it was declared at the end of the fiscal year, and it wasn't a set amount. This is a set amount of 15% back each year.
But again, that also depends on how you do it, right? Because if it's 15% back each year, if it's automatic, it's going to be more than $3.5 million, right?
Well, based upon the historical trend, that's what I base my estimate on.
Right, so you based it on 60% of those 250 actually signing up, so that's 40%. So you'd actually have to add another 40% to this if it was automatic.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. What would that number be?
You're looking at probably about 5-6 million, yeah.
Back to the original cashback.
That's right.
Okay. All right. But be given to those folks that really need the relief, the ones that really use our system a lot. Okay. Secretary Wolf.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be contrary to the flow, and I don't want to vote no without some explanation. We've had surveys before that indicated that our customers don't know the difference between being on an MDX road and a different toll road in South Florida. So do we get the credit for this expensive program?
We get the blame.
We get the blame, but we also complained here that several of us have received improper billings. None of us went online to look at our report, which has line item by line item, every single toll itemized. We all have access to that. We didn't look. If I got a rebate in my account at the end of the year, I wouldn't even notice. I don't track it that close. I figure it's right. How many customers are like that? I also don't like registering for something that I deserve. That's just the way I am. I'm not the only one. So the registration issue, I think it's more trouble than it's worth. I just have a lot of reasons why I'm going to vote no on this.
Well, you could not have a registration requirement. We still send you a check from MDX.
And I wouldn't notice that you sent it to me.
Send you a check to your house.
Send a check to my house, and I'd think,
An old-fashioned check thing,
Yeah.
okay, you know?
Notice you got a check.
everything's
You would
electronic
really
now. Why are
notice.
they giving me
Oh,
paper?
please. Really? You wouldn't deposit it either?
And there's if I may.
Really? Oh, but
Have my account
No, let's
deposited.
keep it civil, okay? He's got the floor right now, go ahead.
We had over how many people registered for the cashback, frequent, whatever you want to call it, program in the past?
There were 227,000 transponders that were registered.
So there are 227,000 members of this community who had no problem registering. And I think we all have, I know I have a rewards program with
63.
the gas I drop by, the credit cards I get, the airlines. So people are very comfortable registering for all that kind of stuff.
If I may.
Publix.
I've been requesting the floor.
Hold on, okay, you still got the floor, go.
So I believe, I understand where you're coming from, Secretary, but it is a conditioned part of society now that you register for rewards, just like you register for a Walgreens rewards card. So it's standard now. It's not an exception like it was in the
Well,
past.
it's a one-time
It's a one-time
registration. It's
thing.
not on an annual basis. So once you register, you automatically are in the program. And that is just to make sure that we have the accurate data. And like Javier said earlier, probably less than, I think it's right around 2% have not cashed, because you can mail these checks out and people move and you don't get the right address. And I think that's part of the problem, that's saying they registered, they took the time, they care, they want the money back, and they give us an accurate address.
Executive Director, you have something to say?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that when we started this program, it was for operational efficiencies. The goal was to get communication with the customer. When they register that first time, we get to inform them. We send them the newsletter, we send them a lot of information, we do surveys with them, and we get tremendous feedback. And that's been the network that has been the most frequent of our users, the people that are actually on the highway every day, not the one-off. So that's one of the other reasons why we started it with a registration program.
Yes. Member Ms. Vano.
logistically, how would we approach this now for sign-up?
Sorry, I apologize. As I stated, the customers who are already in the program would automatically be in the program.
that.
We would do open enrollment, and I'm assuming that our public communication department would put it on the website, and they would get the word out for this fiscal year.
So we would do open enrollment now?
Correct. And then the tolls that would be counted or qualified for the program would be retro from July 1st to 2018, so we give everyone credit for that.
So the communications department that takes care, would do a heavy communication to the public that the sign-up is over? Because I personally, back before we didn't do it, was every opportunity I had was telling you, sign up, sign up, sign up. We even put it on the website at the college. Hopefully, the county can put it on. I think it would be important to let everybody know that this is, once again, available to them, because it was disappointing to all the people that were used to getting checks. That's very important that we get the word out.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
This graph. Am I interpreting the graph correctly when it says that the tolls paid by customer per month that exceed $150 a year?
Oh, okay, per year. Okay, go ahead.
This is per month.
This is per month, sorry. So per year would be the $20 range, right?
Yes.
So that's about 25% of our addressable market, right? So if 60% of that, it's about 10 to 12% of our users. That's who we're talking about, right?
We created this program originally, and it was in response to closing our system on 836.
No, wait, sorry, excuse me. Let me rephrase that for 1 second. This is $250 or more, right?
Correct, it's $1 a day.
Who's excluded from that? So who's excluded
Is the lower
is
end.
only,
Correct,
so this addresses 30% of our users?
Correct.
Potentially?
correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if appropriate, I'd like to make a motion.
Let's have more discussion on it before we make a motion, but I will recognize you for a motion. Any other discussions on this issue? Okay, now you can make your motion. Go ahead.
So I want to, first of all, on this list, you said that we would rescind. This is not rescinding. This is just bringing forward what we had put on hold, correct? With modifications.
Yeah, we're modifying the existing policy
So
to
I
the
would make a
new, to the
motion.
new standards.
Okay, so if you could help me with this, with the legalese of it. I would like the motion to read that we were going to bring back the cash back, and that it would be in the form of checks, because it'd be better that the people have it in their hand and they see it coming in, as opposed to disappearing. They don't know where it's coming from, if it even came in. So, and go with the $250 threshold for the year. I don't need, what else you all are,
How long would you like us to have open enrollment for? That's been an issue in the past.
well, you're saying if we go with checks, we can't do it, send out the checks till December?
We would send out the checks.
There's
in
no way we
December.
can do it for Thanksgiving?
Well, that's what we did. When I say December, that's Thanksgiving. We typically send them out for, we'd
Thanks.
In the November.
try to send it out for the Friday
Make
after
it happen.
Thanksgiving.
We will make it
Out
happen.
the Friday before Thanksgiving, I'd be happy with
We'll
that.
get it out before Thanksgiving.
And that the open enrollment be for 3 months, could it be?
Whatever your suggestion is.
The open enrollment, logistically, practically, when could it start? It's just a matter of opening it, because you already have all this in place. We're not changing it, right?
Well, I certainly don't want to make any commitments for IT, but I would say by the end of next week, whether February 6th or whatever next week is, the 8th, and we leave it open for 60 days. And that's what we,
2 months.
I think we traditionally left it open for 2 months.
I remember moving to extend it.
We started with.
I don't want to have to come back and ask you to extend
Okay,
it.
so 90 days you want it open.
And you can start on Valentine's Day if you want to be a nice gift to everybody.
All right.
Okay, and also we say anybody who was already registered doesn't have to re-register.
That is correct.
That's a fact,
Okay.
right?
So anybody who wants to register will be in open enrollment be for 90 days. It's retro back to when?
July 1st, 2018.
July 1st of 2018.
Correct.
Then we'll true up, I guess, on June 30th of 2019, and you'll get your check before Thanksgiving.
That is correct.
And the new threshold is customers that use more than $250 or more, right?
During the fiscal year, yes.
Or more, and then there's 15% back.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, for
That's better than any credit card I know.
Thank you, sir. That's my motion.
Okay. Did I just state your motion? Really? Okay. Oh, no. Is that your motion? Okay.
I
Very good.
appreciate that.
Okay, very good. So there's a motion that we have an open enrollment of 90 days, that we reconstitute the cashback, what people know as cashback, okay? That we know it as a frequent driver, not flyer, all right? And that it's a $250 threshold. Those that have already signed up for the previous program don't have to sign up again. We have a 90 days that will begin at the beginning of February, whenever that happens, for 90 days. We also need our communications folks to say this program is back, and that if you feel that you, on MDX, spend more than $250 a year, please sign up, and then before Thanksgiving, you'll get a check of 15% back on the tolls, on whatever amount, 15% back on your tolls. So that's the motion. Very good. There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair.
So we have, the treasurer has indicated that our shortfall this year will be $15 million because of the 5%. We're going to add another $3 to $5 million to that shortfall on the budget, correct? So for that reason, I think that the executive director has already stated there's a number of programs that he's going to have to push back or postpone. So based on that, I will vote against the motion.
Okay, all right. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Call the roll.
You're first again? Okay, Ms. Fano.
I'll go first.
Commissioner Edmondson?
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez? Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Secretary Wolf?
No.
Vice Chair Board?
No.
Chair Jimenez?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And please have the Communications Department put out the word that we are reconstituting this program. And I believe that was one of the main sticking points that we had with our legislators also, that when we did the 5%, we eliminated this program. So now we've reconstituted it, okay? All right, so now we're still on discussion items. What's that? Okay, I want to bring forward an item, a resolution affirming a declaration of no further toll rate increases on the current expressway system and repealing the consumer price index. That's not to say that we have a consumer price index, we just look at it every 3 years. I've asked the executive director, do we have any toll increases on the horizon? And he says no. And so for us to even think about a CPI or even look at it every 3 years, I think is unnecessary. In the future, the CPI, is some kind of increase is needed, a board will take it up at that time. But right now, I think it's confusing. It makes people believe we have a CPI. I don't want anybody to believe we have a CPI. I've gone out and said we don't have a CPI. We don't have an automatic CPI. So I would like to, if the vice chair, is not here, if you can take the chair for a second, then I can make a motion. I make a motion that reaffirm declaration of no future toll rate increases, again reaffirming that we will not be increasing tolls here on my MDX on the current expressway system, and repealing the consumer price index review that we have every 3 years, correct? And I make that motion.
Moved by the chair. Does someone wish to second it? Seconded by Board Member Fano. It's open for discussion. Does anyone want to make a comment on it? I actually will. I cannot. Number one, Mr. Mayor, as you're aware of, we have never issued a CPI in the 9 years I've been here. And I think it's important to note that one of the things I would like when you go to Tallahassee is to discuss the fact that the law that was passed 2 years ago requires us to use an automatic CPI, and hopefully there's a way we can alleviate this with some new legislation this year. That may have been an unintended consequence of what was passed, but I think that's something that needs to be clarified, because although we pass this resolution, if we are to follow the law written directly, it has to be done. And I think that's something that needs to be clarified. And since you're going to Tallahassee on the 6th, that might be something that can be broached as discussed as part of it as well.
Fair enough.
Discussion closed. All in, unless anyone else has a comment. Mr. Secretary, I apologize. You have anything to comment on this?
Thank you. I just note that we can't bind a future board. We can't bind ourselves, in fact. We could reverse this next month. So I view it as it's a genuine change to the CPI. We won't have to continue reviewing that, but no future toll rate increases. It's more of a statement of policy at this time rather than something that binds us in the future. That's my interpretation. If that's incorrect, please advise me.
I think you're correct. You can never bind a future board, and no legislature can bind a future legislature either. So, or no board can be bound, no board can bind a future board. So you're absolutely correct. But it is the intent of this board. I think it's a clear indication that this board, as currently comprised, has no intention of raising the tolls on MDX.
I have been informed that you can take the gavel back after you make the motion. That
I'll take the gavel back. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the item?
No.
Okay, everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? See no opposition, item passes. Thank you. Next item, do we have any other discussion items?
No, we don't.
Brought forward. Item number 9A.
These are informational items. They're in your packets, the procurement report, and we already discussed the public communications report. Again, I will be reaching out to each one of the board members to have a conversation on the communications strategy.
Okay. Any comments on the reports? Secretary Wolf?
I would like to note that Maurice Ferre was honored this morning with the naming of a park. It was a wonderful ceremony and well-deserved, one of our former members.
Yes, it was.
Here, here. I was there after the state of the county, and I can say that that Mayor Ferre was a visionary. Is a visionary. He's not was. He is a visionary. He continues to be incredibly involved in this community, trying to make this community a better place. I consider him a friend. I consider him a mentor. And it's an honor that's been long delayed, should have happened a long time ago, for an individual who has done so much for this community. So I'm very happy for him, and it was, from what I understand, a very good ceremony, and I'm glad the city of Miami took that step. Any other comments? Thank you. All right, so that's items number 9. Number 10, announcements.
The next board meeting, the next committee meetings are scheduled for February 26th, and the next board meeting is that same afternoon. So next month, we have a 2 o'clock meeting, a 3 o'clock meeting, and a 4 o'clock meeting on February 26th.
Okay. Well, we had so much fun today. So I look forward to more fun on those in February. Anybody have anything else for the good and welfare?
Just that since this is our first meeting of the year, Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody. And thank you, board members, for being here. I know it's been a pretty long day for you, and I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it, and we appreciate your time and what you do for the people of Miami-Dade County. Thank you very much. This meeting is now adjourned.